Welcome to Part 3 of the Contact Basics series for ProTracker Software's Advantage. During this tutorial, we will be discussing how to import a batch of contacts. In Contact Basics Part 1, we discussed using the Add a Contact feature to enter one contact at a time. In Part 2, we went over using the new Contact Wizard feature to enter an entire family of contacts at one time. In Part 3, we will be discussing how to import a whole batch of contacts at once. You could use this procedure for importing several hundred or even 1,000 contacts at one time. The important part is to set up the import file correctly. If we press F1 from our keyboard to open the ProTracker Advantage Help System, and on the Index tab, search for Import Contacts. You can see that there are several ways of importing contacts into Advantage, from Microsoft Outlook, through a generic import, or even through Marketing's batch input. Let's take a look at this last article. The Help article explains the Marketing batch input screen, but it also provides some examples. It talks about the standard format for import file and an extended format. The standard format takes these field names that are listed here, and if you correctly separate them with a comma, you can import that file. Here is a sample of that file. It can be an XLS, an Excel spreadsheet, or a CSV file. Notice the format: one row for each contact, and the first row of the spreadsheet is the title of the fields. So the ordering of the fields isn't so important, but the names of the column headers are quite significant. If we select the From Outlook Import article, it provides us with a list of columns of data that may be imported and what the columns should be named in order to have this import be successful. So you get a sense of the type of information that can be imported into ProTracker from Outlook or from a general spreadsheet. So back in ProTracker, let's look at where these things are found. If we go to the File menu and select Import, and then select Generic Import, and select Contacts, we are then asked to browse and to select an XLS or CSV file. The same thing happens when we go to File, Import, and then Microsoft Outlook and Contacts. Again, it will ask us for an XLS or CSV file. The exact same procedure is used whether I'm doing a generic import or an import from Outlook. The third place you can do this is from the Marketing menu and selecting the Batch Input option. The idea being that maybe you get a batch of contacts from a marketing source. Whichever procedure you use, you will be taken to this Batch Input dialog box. Let's click on Import from File to browse and select the file. Let's import a file called Contacts, which is an Excel spreadsheet. We will open up this Excel spreadsheet to show you what it looks like beforehand, and it is on my desktop. So this is just a short list of contacts. Notice that there is one contact, which is the Wall Street Journal, and it has a first name, middle name, and a last name entered. Also notice that there is a business called the Corner Deli, which is entered in the company field, and there is no first or last name entered. We will see how ProTracker handles these two examples of businesses. So as I scroll across, you can get a sense of the type of information that can be entered into ProTracker. Notice at the end of the spreadsheet there is a column entitled Is Business. The Wall Street Journal and the Corner Deli have a -1 entered here, which in Microsoft Access means true. Notice all of the other individual people entered have the number 0, meaning that they are not a business entity. This field is useful for ProTracker to decide whether a contact should be treated as a business or as an individual person. So exiting out of the Excel program, we will import the Contacts Excel file into ProTracker. Notice that ProTracker first examines the contacts and then brings them into this dialog box. The corner deli is the first entry, and notice that the business or trust checkbox has been checked, denoting this entry as a business entity. Notice there is a phone number entered, but notice there is no formatting here. If we click on the Format Phone and Fax button, ProTracker will format the phone numbers entered. Notice the new formatting style. Going to the next contact, we have the Wall Street Journal. Remember again, it is a business entity, and we entered a -1 in the Excel spreadsheet. Going to the next contact now, notice that Carolyn is an individual person now. Notice that there's only one address entered, the home address, so ProTracker automatically assumes that this will be designated as the mailing address. You can change that if you wish. And in fact, over here on the column of buttons, for all the contacts in the list, if they all have something in common, such as the home address should always be the mailing address, you can click this button and ProTracker will automatically do that for all the contacts in the batch input. Sometimes you get a contact imported with all lowercase letters or all caps. The Fix Case button can come in handy to fix the contact's information so that it has standard capital letter, lowercase for the remainders of names, streets, cities, etc. You could also use the tool, the Scan Business Card tool, to scan a business card, and it will bring the information into the batch one card at a time. Each card will produce a separate screen. There is a help article on scanning business cards if you are interested in ProTracker's help system. So we will continue to scroll through the contacts. If we see something that is not accurate, you can fix it before it becomes imported into the database. These contacts are sitting in a batch that has not yet been imported. Any manual changes you make here will affect the import. So for example, if we knew the mailing address for Marilyn Sheldon, we could enter it now. And underneath in the home address area, we could click the Same as Mailing button and notice how Advantage transfers the address down. Notice that the gender, female, is appearing, the date of birth, the social security number, all of the information from the import. After you have reviewed all of the contacts to make sure that this is the type of information that you want, you can then import them into the database. Before that, let's talk about the top part of the dialog box. The top contains information that will apply to every contact being imported. So they will all be given a source date of today's date, meaning the day they entered your database, and presumably the day you became aware of them. If that date is not correct, you can update that source date now if you wish, or at a later time. You can select a source type if all of the contacts became part of your database as a result of a marketing campaign, maybe a client referral. If they were all referred by the same person, maybe a client in your database, such as John Sample. You always have the option of leaving all of these fields blank if you wish. All contacts will be assigned to the same office and will be assigned to the same firm contact. When you do a batch input, the firm contact will default to you, but you may select another employee in your firm to be the firm contact. If all of the contacts in the batch are the same contact type, maybe this batch is a batch of prospects, for example. If you don't want them to all have the same contact type, no matter what you select in the type field, you can add a column on your original Excel spreadsheet called Type. Each contact in the batch can then be a different contact type. As a side note, if you add a contact type on your Excel spreadsheet that is not already listed in this type pick list in ProTracker Advantage, that new contact type will be added to the type pick list. You may also add all of the members of this batch input to an existing static group. For example, if this is a group of attorneys and you want to add them to an existing static group of attorneys, you could do that right here. While we are mentioning groups, the batch name field at the top will actually become a group of all the people in this batch. The default name for this group is what is indicated here, the word batch followed by the date of the batch input. You can change the batch name if you wish. This batch group will appear in the group list screen in Advantage after the import is complete. Now at this time, we could close this batch without importing the batch. If, for example, you had to leave your office before finishing the import, you can then open it back up, and this batch is still going to be there with the same contacts. If you decide that you don't want to import these contacts into Advantage after all, you can delete the entire batch, or you could delete one contact at a time. If ProTracker finds a duplicate, an exact match to an existing contact, there will be a red exclamation mark right next to the full name field for the contact, indicating that this is a duplicate contact record. The duplicate will not be imported into Advantage. When you are ready to import the batch of contacts, click the Commit Batch button. You are offered the option of backing out at this point or going ahead. After you have done the import, the contacts, the 11 contacts, have been added to the database. This batch will no longer exist in the batch input dialog box. You can then start from scratch. Let's take a look at a contact that we just added. Remember that we added the Wall Street Journal. So here it is. Remember that all of the contacts in the batch input were labeled as the contact type prospect, but in this case, let's change the Wall Street Journal to a media contact type. Also notice that the business or trust checkbox has been checked, denoting it as a business entity. Remember that we mentioned that this batch would be brought in as a group. If we go to the group list and look under the B's, we will see the new batch added on this date. If we open up the group profile and on the membership tab, we will see the list of people and the businesses that were added as a result of this batch input. So if you have no reason for maintaining this batch group, we could delete the batch by suppressing it. This group may come in handy, however, as a means of communicating with the members of this batch input. In summary, the batch input is a way to import a large number of contacts at one time. The power of the batch input is that you just need to have the column headers correct on your Excel spreadsheet, and you can import 500 plus contacts at one time. For more information about ProTracker Advantage, contact us.